Welcome to this meeting of the Council's Cabinet. It's going to be webcast. So I'm glad you all took the trouble. Now, before we start these proceedings, can I bring to your attention some housekeeping matters? There's no expected fire alarm testing today. So if the fire alarm sounds, please follow the fire and emergency procedures and leave by the nearest fire exit. Can I ask that you use your microphone when addressing the meeting and that it is switched off when you are not using it? And can you make sure that your mobile devices are turned to silent, he says. Which I'll make sure that they are. Done. So I'm going to move to item 1, apologies. There are no councillor apologies because the gang's all here. Any others that we need to know about?
Thank you, Leader. We've just got apologies from the Chief Exec, Tracy.
Thank you. And Gary is occupying the hot seat.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest in respect to any of the items on the agenda? Nope. Thank you. And then the minutes. These are on pages 1 to 14. Can I propose that the minutes of the meeting held on the 31st of March 2025 be signed as a correct record? Is that agreed? Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the public, Jamie?
No questions from the public today, Leader.
Thank you very much. And item 5, Chair's urgent business. Is there any urgent business that I need to?
There's no urgent business today, Leader.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. So, moving swiftly on, we are already at item 6, which is Provisional Capital and Revenue Outturn Report 24-25. Now, this was in the supplement pack, pages 1 to 20, and I'm going to ask Councillor Mark Lowry to introduce this item. We will be supported, though, by Helen, the Assistant Head of Finance, and Ian and Ollie are also down to bail us out if we need it. So, although bailing out is not something that we need to do, as Mark will now reveal.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. This is the provisional outturn report, and it's described exactly as that because, of course, it is provisional, subject to it being audited by our auditors during this financial year. In addition to that, it will also go to our Audit and Governance Committee for their consideration and the scrutiny panels. So this is the 12 months position at the end of the financial year, and you won't be surprised to know that in reading the report that we are in a balanced position. So there's no need for us to use our working balances on this occasion, so they will be kept at the current 5% of our net revenue budget. So that's excellent news. But in addition to that, of course, whilst we talk about our revenue budget at some £241 million, we do have a gross budget of some £625 million that we spend annually. So it is a significant achievement that we've been able to balance our books this year, because you'll be well aware we've had a number of key challenges. Inflation, cost of living, national living wage, and of course we've also seen a tremendous increase in demand for many of our services. And I will come back to that. But in respect of this budget and this paper, it does support a balanced position, and we have had to use reserves, which is normal from time to time, and those reserves have been drawn down against the provision of children's services, adult social care, and the provision of SEND on this occasion. And if you refer to page 7, table 2, you will see the position per directorate. It sets out what the directorate budget was, what the provisional outturn was, and whether there was an underspend or overspend. And as you can see, if you refer to that table, what I've previously said, and I always say the same every meeting with respect to council's budget, we are seeing a tremendous number of people becoming homeless, needing our support, more elderly people requiring our support, Sadly, more children are being taken into care and supported by the local authority. And of course, we're seeing more children requiring our support for special educational needs. So that's why you're seeing these tremendous overspends against the budgets. And those have been addressed by the underspend and the use of our corporate resources and corporate departments' underspends. So if you were to look at that expenditure overall, 83% of this council's net budget that we spend, all that council tax we collect, all that business rates we collect, all that other money we collect along the way, 83% of it is being spent on the provision of care for children, adults, and homelessness. So there's where the challenges have been this year, and sadly they will remain there for the remainder years. But we have got some good news, and I know Councillor Lang will come to some of that, but we are working to provide additional support in the area of SEND. Councillor Penbervy is working very hard to provide more homelessness accommodation across the piece. Councillor Lang is working hard to deliver new children's services and new children's homes to support the pressure that currently exists. So we're there, we've got a balanced position, very good news, subject to us being adequately audited, which I'm confident that we will have a good outcome. The team know what they're doing, provided all the data. We've had some challenges and we've got some challenges ahead. I just want to briefly refer to the remainder of the documentation, which talks about the capital programme. And you will see that set out on section 4, pages 14 onwards. And you will see within the tables that with the budget that was set in December of £120 million, we actually spent £109 million, and that equates to 91% of the capital programme. I would also, just to let you know, that of that £109 million, 72.9 million of it was funded from grants or from external sources. So I just wanted to give you some comfort. That's not just the council spending £109 million. Nearly £73 million of that money has been given to us by grants either from central government or by others externally. And just to give you a flavour of some of the schemes that those grants used to support, you've heard me talk about them and you've talked about them yourself on numerous occasions. We've got Woolwell to the George, the railway station regeneration, housing projects tackling homelessness, our net zero ambitions, the introduction to the zero emissions buses, but I think I saw arrived only last week. In addition to that, of course, we've got the Freeport, the motorway regeneration, highway maintenance, drainage, central engineering projects, and of course the National Marine Park. So this is a report that's looking backwards. It's now time for us to focus on the issues that I've discussed around addressing those principal overspends. But all in all, a good position to be in. I would say thank you to all cabinet members and officers for their tremendous contribution in achieving this objective, and I look forward to continued support and hard work in the next financial year. Thank you.
Mark, thank you for that. I wonder, did any of you want to add anything?
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Councillor Lowry, for that comprehensive overview of the report. I don't think there's anything to add anything further to add other than I think it clearly sets out some of the challenges that were faced in the year, and testament to my colleagues who have navigated their way through, and equally cabinet members as well. So nothing more to add. I think that's a great summary of where we find ourselves today.
Okay, well that was a really good list that you read out there, and I wondered whether we can make sure that that list is publicised. There's a lot of stuff and negativity going around at the moment about the performance of the authority. I would say 99.99% of it is pretty undeserved. There's another thing that's undeserved, which is the constant drip, drip, drip of opposition councillors on this council claiming that we are close to bankruptcy. It's completely false to say that. Nothing could be further from the truth. And again, I think it's important that we make sure that that's plain as day, because making false accusations like that, whether it be opposition councillors for their political advantage or other people who are trying to change the structure of this council, is false. This council is well managed financially. there is hardship, of course. There are stresses and strains and priorities, but we are not anywhere close to bankruptcy. If we were, there would be things that have to happen. Officers would have to come in and sort that out. They're not making those reports. Neither are our auditors. And I am issuing today a challenge to the opposition on this council to cease and desist with talking the council down. It is dangerous and it's misleading, and it should cease forthwith. Mark, back to you.
Included within the report, which is usual, but it's sometimes not always the most exciting subjects that everybody wishes to read about in detail. We have a section called Treasury Management Borrowing, which is referring to some of the issues that you've raised. And if you were to read those sections on page 17, it sets out the borrowing this council has, and it even individually sets out the interest rate, the average interest rate cost against each of our elements of borrowing. And it then goes on to set out the proportion of financing costs as a percentage of net revenue. So as you can see, yes, we've got borrowing. All councils have got borrowing, and it's appropriate to do so. You can't build the likes of the Box or Forder Valley Link Road or the Life Centre without some element of borrowing. And of course, I often talk about the business parks that we've been building, and we have been building them for a number of years. And people long before me were building business parks in the city that are owned by the city. Those alone are in excess of £400 million worth. And of course, not only do those business parks exist, but they provide jobs, they provide business rates, they provide rent, and much more employment more than anything. So it is very misleading to try to convince people that somehow this council has a financial problem, because we simply don't.
Unless you're a millionaire, you wouldn't buy your house out of cash. I mean, there's some millionaires that can do that, but most of us in Plymouth could not do that. We have to borrow the money. So what we've invested in are assets. This is not borrowing for our current account. This is borrowing for assets which drive jobs and growth and entertainment and housing and all those other things. So I'm afraid, again, my appeal is to the opposition parties on this council and those who are doing this council down for their own nefarious purposes. This council's borrowing is not by any means an outlier. The borrowing is sensible. The borrowing realises assets. The borrowing brings in income. And we cannot, I mean, the question is what would these people have us do in the face of unemployment? Do nothing? What would these people have us do in a gridlocked city, but invest not a penny in the roads or in the industrial estates or in the housing? That is the alternative. So the borrowing, as Mark has quite rightly said, is sensible, it's affordable, and it derives a benefit to the city. And that's why we do it. It's responsible borrowing. It is not irresponsible, and it is not to fund the current account. And so I just say, tone it down. You're talking the city down. Stop it. Okay, so we've got a recommendation, in fact, a few. They're on page 1 of the supplementary. There are altogether 5 recommendations, including that we put the final version of this post-audit to the council in our meeting in June. So can I see all those in favour of the recommendations, please? Thank you very much indeed. And once again, could I echo your thanks to the council's finance staff, who've done a fantastic job again, without complaint. Well, not in our hearing anyway, right? But the point is, we are so grateful for the work you do. You carry out your duties with incredible diligence and care, and we would not be here if it weren't for your efforts, so thank you. I'm now going to move on, if that's all right, to the next item on the agenda, if I can find my agenda sheet, that is. And that is the exciting news about LGR. Local government reorganisation, 3 little words, but incredibly important to the future of this council. I'm pleased to say that we've been joined by Ross Jago, who's our head of devolution and LGR office, who's going to probably give us a little bit more insight than I would possibly be able to do. I think what we probably want to do, though, Ross, is talk about the situation post May the 1st elections, because there may be some thing in the LGR space and in the Devo space. I don't want to get into too much detail about that on Devo, but could we talk a little bit about LGR, please, and what you've been up to?
Thank you, Leader. So since we submitted our interim plan in March, we've been establishing the work programme to develop the detailed proposal that we'll now need to submit in November of this year. And that is, of course, to extend our current administrative boundary to include 13 parishes of the South Hams, as we've previously discussed. So we are waiting for some government feedback on the proposals as put forward by Devon. We're expecting that very imminently in the next couple of days. But what we've been doing since our March submission is working with our neighbouring local authorities to start to understand and share data around service delivery costs, where opportunities for savings might exist. So that work will go on. We'll shortly be launching an engagement programme to ensure that local voices are heard throughout that process. That will be an engagement programme which is delivered across Plymouth and the 13 parishes. And we are also developing some community meetings and an online platform to gather feedback. All of which is going to be really important for how we develop our proposal for November. So we've been doing an awful lot whilst we wait for the feedback from government. We've also had some invitations to some engagement events. So Councillor Creswell, Councillor Lang joined me at the South Hams Society on the 24th of April, where there was a very robust discussion about the future of local government in the South Hams. We were also invited to Harford Parish Council last week, where we had a discussion with Harford about some planning concerns that they had, how a future authority might work closely with the Dartmoor National Park, particularly in their parish, which is very important to them. And just this Saturday, I spent 3 or 4 hours with Paul Barnard and Councillor John Stevens at Wembury Village Hall as part of their annual general meeting. Wembury Parish Council invited us along to talk about LGR there. So I think they've all been quite positive meetings. We've taken a lot of learning from them. I think it's fair to say that many of the issues that people are concerned about in the 13 parishes are very similar to the issues that our residents in Plymouth are concerned about, and that's things like affordable housing and potholes and speed of traffic and bus times and so on. So all very, very similar issues. Of course, we need to consider how we're going to be protecting those very local identities in places like Holberton and Yonkton and Brixton and so on. But we're doing that by continuing to work with those parish councils and developing our programme of engagement events over the next couple of months. So some good feedback so far. Really looking forward to continuing to work with those people who are keen to work with us. And hopefully soon we'll be in a position where we've got all of the data we need to start building the proposal for November. In terms of the impact of the local election, I think yet to be seen. I think our colleagues in Devon are still putting an administration together as far as I'm aware. So whilst I think there is a possibility of a fairly significant impact in terms of how Devon want to put forward a proposal, I'm not sure what those implications are quite yet. Thanks.
Well, that's a very fair answer, because obviously there's a lot of change in Devon. I spoke to the current leader of the South Hams. Well, he was when I spoke to him, and he's now, there'll be a new leader in the South Hams Council, because the leader of the South Hams Council that was now is going to be the leader of Devon County Council. So, you know, as best we can see, that's the situation in Devon. But I mean, there are wider conversations that are going to be happening in the Devo space coming forward. Obviously, been changing Cornwall with probably a Lib Dem and independent administration, with some confidence and supply stuff going on as well. So we don't know how that's going to play out either at the moment, and we'll probably, you know, that'll probably come forward later on in the year now, because there's a lot of settling in to do for both of those new administrations. But obviously the LGR piece is much more time critical, and we'll continue to press ahead with our work on that. But I'm grateful, Ross, for all the work you've been doing, and Paul too. It's a monumental amount of work, and there's only two of you, that's so thank you for what you're doing. Does anybody have any questions for Ross at the moment? Mark?
Just some clarity around what you just referred to as in the changes of the political makeup. So the first question is, do they have a veto, and therefore, you know, can we continue on the road we're on? Because if they just turn around and say no, and when is the next time Cabinet will be engaged with in respect of making a formal submission of some sort? Because obviously we made the last formal submission, please.
So answer to the first part is yes, we can continue. So certainly Devon have no veto over the proposals that are being put forward to government. It will remain a government decision on the proposal they wish to take forward, and it will remain a consultation that will be led by government. My expectation in terms of a formal proposal here is most likely to be in October of this year. That would be in advance of our November submission. We'd also be looking to get a council endorsement of that position, as we did for the March submission. So I think it's expected to bring something more formal in October, but more than happy to provide updates or paper whenever Cabinet requires it.
We have to proceed on the timetable that we were given before. We have no sense of whether that's going to alter or not. No reason to think so, because those elections for 27 and 28 were kind of, it was already very tight to do those anyway. So I think it's probably full steam ahead on those. But it's just important to say that the County Council has no veto over us. We are an independent unitary authority. The question might be as to whether Devon's position, which was a number of options in their meeting, which was held before the election under a different administration, whether that crystallises into a different offer. Now there's a new administration in County Hall. But that, again, doesn't affect us in the sense that our proposal is still our proposal, and we're in complete control of what that would be. The government's expressed a desire for us all in a county area to come up with a plan that we all agree on. But as I've said before, I have a number of skills, but being a member of the United Nations is not one of them. But we will see how that goes, but we wouldn't be alone in that. There are a number of places around the country where councils, let's say, are not exactly rallying around a particular flag, if I could say. All right. So if we can note the report there, thank Ross for his report, and we look forward to further updates in due course. Did you have a Did
Oh,
you?
no, sorry,
I thought, oh, right,
no, I
you
just
okay.
thought the
Sorry, I
answers.
caught you out of the corner. In which case, we would now move on, and thank you, Ross. We'll note the report. Next item, Building Bridges to Opportunity Progress Report. Now, we've got Nick Shaw here. Hi, Nick, okay. Nick is the Public Health Registrar in the Office of the Director of Public Health, but Chris Penberthy will provide the update. It says here, Chris.
Thank you, Leader. I'm going to kick off, and then Nick, I think, has a presentation to share with us. Apologies, this isn't a written report, but we're halfway through the year that we set out in a report last October, and we just wanted to bring a mid-term update. Building Bridges to Opportunity, we have set out as an agenda of how we change the lives of about 20% of the population of Plymouth that are, in other words, identified as living in poverty. But this isn't about a negative. This is about what we can do in a very positive way. An approach that's asset-based, building on the work that we and partners are doing on asset-based community development, that is informed and is using appreciative inquiry to inform the work that we're doing. So it's not just top down, it's also bottom up. Maria Lawson has sent her apologies this afternoon because she works on a Monday in the NHS, so today isn't one of the days she'd normally be working with us on this, but is our champion for Building Bridges to Opportunity and Vice Chair of the Child Poverty Group. And if she were here, she would be talking about some of this rather than me. In the report and the way we're doing things, Nick will introduce more, but the highlights, we want to stop people becoming poor in the first place. If people are living in poverty, we want to help mitigate the impacts, but we know that sticking plasters aren't good enough and aren't ever big enough. So what we really want to do is help those people who are experiencing a real lack of finance in the home to have the options and the choices and the ability to lift themselves out of the situation they're in order to be able to earn the money they need for them and their households to live well. Because that's actually the dignity that everyone demands. We're linking this to the Plymouth Plan. We know that there are already a whole load of plans and programmes that come out of the Plymouth Plan that have an impact on people's lives. We're identifying those. We're looking at the importance of partnership. This isn't a city council problem, this is a Plymouth problem, and we're identifying what else is going on. We're looking then at joining up and identifying where things might be slipping through the gaps and looking at what we can do within existing resources to not duplicate, but to close those gaps. And all of that's going to be informed by lived experience. And Nick will talk about some of the work that's already started in that area. Because this is big, we have an enhanced role for the Cabinet Advisory Working Group on Child Poverty. In the past, this has been identifying a few bits that it could look at. So children's dental care has been one of the bits that that group has espoused for more than a decade now. But we're not going to be concentrating on small projects anymore. What we're going to be looking at is the whole agenda through the eyes of the impact that we have on children and young people when we're tackling poverty and its impacts in the city. Because we think that's a much healthier way. We'll actually look at what we can do in the bigger bits, the structural bits, the things that will stop children and young people actually suffering in the first place. So that's the quick overview of why we're doing what we're doing and where we've started. Nick is going to talk a little then about what we've done in the first 6 months and what's happening next. Very happy to have questions. And then I just want to give you an example at the end of where we're already beginning to put this into place, because we think that might help just pin down the impacts that we can have by doing this approach. Thank you, Leader.
Chris, thanks very much indeed. So, Nick, over to you.
There we go. Thank you. I'm Nick. I work in the public health team in the council. As a warning for those who haven't heard me speak before, I do have a speech impediment. If it all breaks up, it is just me. It's more obvious in person, admittedly. As has been already mentioned, this the kind of overarching aim of this work is to actually develop an actual framework to understand how, across the whole of the system in Plymouth, we should be looking at poverty through those three core actual lenses, which were mentioned earlier. So far, what we've done is we had started with some work in the council, working with officers to understand what those kind of areas of work might actually look like. But then we, over the last 6 months, I've gone out to some of our partners in the communities across other sectors within the city, working with some of the officers who are working with other partners to understand what our whole system thinks should be happening within Plymouth to address this issue, linking again, as I say, back to those actual lenses. We've also looked at, well, I've also looked at identifying other work that we've already done, which would also provide actual data that would inform answering this question. So as well as the kind of targeted work that I've done, we're also pulling in other data to get that kind of rich experience of what it's like to live in Plymouth and what our partners in our communities think about actually what should be happening. As was mentioned earlier, that core part of the framework is looking at these, at the lenses, so actually helping to reduce the risk of people falling into poverty in Plymouth, helping to increase the likelihood of people who are in poverty in Plymouth being able to move themselves out of it, and also to actually, for those people who are living and experiencing poverty, to actually reduce those impacts which we know cause harm to those people. So we know, for instance, the people who are living in deprivation have actually poorer health outcomes across the whole of the life and across a whole kind of range of health impacts. But there's also just that kind of actual negative experience of living in poverty. And the framework and the kind of one of the aims of the framework is to start to look at all of our plans, our policies, our strategies within the council, but also with our wider partnerships, looking at in those areas, how they impact on those areas. The working with the Child Poverty Working Group, we have established some core principles for this sort of framework. So as I mentioned already, we're looking at a whole systems approach. This isn't about what the council can do. This is about what the whole system should do working together. We've also agreed that we need to be looking at this from the whole of the life course. So we know there's often been an emphasis on the impact of poverty on children, but actually we know that children aren't living in isolation, that actually we need to be looking at those impacts both for the individual as they actually progress, actually through their own life course, but also those interrelational impacts. Of course, as a lot of our work in public health and across the council, we're looking at the impact of trauma on this, so making sure that the work we do is trauma informed. And we're also making sure that this is actually a co-produced piece of work with our partners. And as I'll speak about in a minute, I've already been looking at how we engage with our partners to understand these impacts and drivers of poverty, but I'll also be going back out to our partners to help to interpret that actual data that we've already collected and how that informs then the development of the framework. So the emerging themes, so from that kind of engagement work I have been actually doing, and this is only a kind of a handful of the themes that have emerged, and there's a lot of overlap with these themes that have emerged and the things we'd initially talked about with the officer group. But there were things about actually maximising income for people. So I'm going to have to have a little sip of water a second. So maximising income for people who are living in the city. Excuse me. There's an emphasis on actually strengthening some of the of our actual. Oh, I can't speak today. Actual communities. So how do we? Not how do we, but how as a whole system our communities strengthened, and how communities improve their own actual resilience. Something around optimising the actual transport links. So one of the things, particularly people in the communities, have recognised is that actually it can be quite hard for people who are living in the city to access actually different areas in the city, and there may be some need to think about how that's optimised as we move forward, and again also with optimising our local economies. And as I've mentioned, this is about whole systems work, but it's also not necessarily thinking about things which are new. It's about recognising the work we're already doing as a council with our strategic partners, with our communities in these areas. And again, also improving access to and the quality of housing in the city. So these aren't actually new things. We're already doing lots of work in this area, but some of this is about recognising how these themes impact on poverty and on the experience for people in the city. So as I mentioned earlier, the work we've been doing up to now has been about engaging with our communities, with our wider partners, to understand these drivers and impacts of poverty. So the next step in this will be looking at how we make actual sense of that and turn that kind of rich actual data we've collected into those themes, which will then actually form that kind of middle ring in the framework. At the same time as that, we're going to be looking at mapping the existing plans, policies, strategies that are already happening within the council with some of our strategic partners against those emerging themes to highlight the strengths and the weaknesses in the system. And those may not be our strengths or weaknesses, those may be strengths and weaknesses that are with our wider partners and with the communities. It's kind of one of the things that we also recognise we need to look at with this is it's all very well having the framework, but we need to also be able to think about how are we actually achieving against that. So we're going to be looking at how we might actually measure actually some of those some of the themes in the framework, and we'll be also working with our partners, with our communities in the sense making to start to understand what metrics are appropriate, what we already have, and what might inform this. We're also keen to have a formal actual recognition of the child poverty, I can't say this one total thingy, Cabinet Advisory Group's role in the programme from the perspective of the impact of poverty on children. We're still in this engagement phase, so I'm moving into the actual sense making. So if anybody is keen to be involved, then I'm happy to have a chat with anybody. And you're welcome to email me for that. Thank you.
Thanks very much indeed, Nat. That's a very clear and simple presentation, so councillor proof. So I'm going to ask if there are any questions to Nick at the moment. Mary?
Just really a general question. Nick, can we have a copy of those slides, please? Because they were really informative. So thank you for putting those together. Very easy read, easily understood. So I appreciate that. But thank you.
So now on this, I presume the answer to that is yes. I'm going to hand back to Chris Penberthy now to take us through the example he flagged up earlier.
Thank you, Leader. And I just wanted to talk a little bit more about something I've talked about here before in terms of the work we're doing on the economic strategy and to unpack that a bit further. So the work we have identified is that for women in employment in the city, they are doing substantially less well than men. The headlines that I'm talking about quite a lot are that if you average every man's wage in the city, turn it into an hourly rate and do the same with women, the difference is more than £4 an hour, and that's about 21%. That is really bad. That is a citywide impact on women. It means women have less pensions. It means women have less disposable income. And the impact of that for most women is that that will have an impact on their ability to care for their children or elderly relatives in the way that they would want to, and has a longer term impact on their health and well-being, because they will be going without to try and do what they always do so well for everyone else. And that's, I know, a little bit of gender stereotyping, but I know full well when I'm going around my own ward, it is the women that are holding families together, and in some ways, the worse the financial situation, the more important the role of women is. So that's the first figure. The second figure is if you take the median wage nationally and compare that to Plymouth. In Plymouth, 50% of men earn less and 50% of men earn more. So that would say it's about right. Until we look at women, where 80% earn less and only 20% earn more. 30% disparity there in terms of the mean living wage. And actually, that is really, really bad. And 50% of women in work in the city are earning less than the full-time equivalent of the National Living Wage Foundation recommended rate. And that means that 50% of women in the city are earning less than is deemed, not by the government, but by respected think tanks, of how much they need to lead a basic good life. If we can impact women's income in the city, we dramatically change the impact on poverty and on children, and actually on older people as well. So this is a really big issue. And so that's the issue. But how do we tackle it? Well, we need to address skills. We need to look at community development. And one of the issues that we've got a meeting, Jemima and I have a meeting later this week about, is whether we have a community builder explicitly looking at understanding the perspectives of women living on the lowest incomes in the city, because we are picking up perspectives that actually those women don't feel that if they aspire to earn more, that they could partly do it, but if they did, would it mean their lives would all fall to pieces, that they'd have to move house, that their friendship networks wouldn't work? Well, that's what we're hearing anecdotally. We need to test that out. So the work we're doing in community development and through the work of community builders is really important. We need to make sure that childcare meets the needs of women, that wraparound school care meets the needs of women, that women feel that they can have aspiration and pride in place, and the role of culture in building those support mechanisms and aspiration for women. We need to work on employment practices. We need to ensure that housing is appropriate, that public transport meets the needs of women and workplaces. This isn't just about one issue, it's about lots of issues that together mitigate against women being able to do the things that women do. I was hearing of a man who works in the dockyard who has to put 4 hours extra into their working day because they're the parent with responsibility for getting child into childcare and getting to work and getting back. And that's what most families assume the women will do. And there are big challenges around all of that. So we've actually now got a working group with some of my cabinet colleagues to help draw some of this together. The Inclusive Growth Sector Lead is working with the private, public and voluntary community and social enterprise sectors. We're going to have a whole working group set up there. We're going to have community builders working on understanding the grassroots up, and our champions, both Maria as the champion for building bridges to opportunity, but also Angela Penrose as our champion for welcoming city and diversity, actually coming together to be a link between all of the groups and to get out there and to understand more. So this is about a whole system approach to tackling one issue within everything that we will find. And we found that issue because we started doing some mapping around one thing. I think we're going to find lots more. We're going to add depth to all of this. And what we're going to discover is not that we're not doing things, but that we can do things smarter, we can do things better. And as we often do in Plymouth, we can join up and make life better together, because we're really good at that in Plymouth. Not saying it's a national issue, we'll wait, but actually what's the Plymouth solution to what we have going on here in Plymouth? So that's where we're expecting to see much more work. And by the end of the year, we're hoping to come back with actually a whole action plan on building bridges to opportunity that won't be the finished product, but will be the next stage, set out some, and there'll be a whole load of more development and learning to go as we go forward. But this is the sort of thing that we're exploring, the sort of thing that we're learning, and I think that will bring real ownership, not only to building bridges to opportunity, but across the whole council and across our partners, about how together we can substantially change the lives of people in Plymouth, which, as you said in the introduction to the economic strategy, is the real reason for doing it. If we're not going to lift people out of poverty, why bother? So I just wanted to give you that real worked up example, Leader. And I would like to say a big thank you to everyone who's involved in this journey, because it's a tough journey to go through, because it's a journey of reflection and of learning and having to face up to some harsh realities that can be easy to sweep under the carpet. So a big thank you to everyone who's on that journey with us. Thank you, Leader.
That's great, thank you. And I think what that's demonstrated, both what Nick has been talking about and what you've been talking about, is solutions to poverty in this city are not simple. Because if they are simple, we've already done it. It's complicated. I mean, just thinking now about, you know, what we've been through over the last decade, you know, 2 major recessions and COVID, and we're still here. And we're, as a city, not only are we alive, we're kicking. And if you look at what we've done in terms of business growth in this city post-COVID, it's astonishing records, one of the best in the country. And again, I say the naysayers and the doom merchants need to look at the evidence in front of their eyes, not on how they would like it to be. But the reality of the situation is there's still more to do, and there's always more to do, as Chris has pointed out. And our new economic plan will address those issues head on, won't hide, won't sweep it under the carpet. We're going to confront it, we're going to deal with it, and we're going to make people's lives better. So all we have to do now, I believe, is to note your report. Is that correct? I think that's all we need to do today. Nick, thank you for your attendance today. Always a pleasure. Do come again. And thank you, Chris, for your words too. So if we can now move on, and Chris again, on item 9. Now, this is in your supplement pack, pages 21 to 32, and it's an update on homelessness and rough sleeping. So over to you, Chris. Welcome, Mr. Garrett. Nice to see you.
Thank you, Leader. I'm not going to go through absolutely everything that is in the report. There is a lot there. And this is a report that we took to scrutiny in a slightly different form because we've updated some of the figures here, but we have taken this to scrutiny and have committed to go to scrutiny every 6 months with an update on the work we're doing to tackle homelessness in the city. As Mark was telling us earlier, this is one of the areas where demand is really high and it's put substantial pressures on the council budget. Pre-COVID, our bed and breakfast and temporary accommodation bill was £800,000 a year, not 4.6 million as it is today. Now, that is nothing to do with the failing of the council. That's to do with what's going on outside the council and the way we are reacting to it to meet our legal responsibilities. But it does show the extreme pressure that a service is under. And this report tells 2 stories. It tells that story of what's going on outside, the fact that the private rented sector is overheating at a point where people are trying to leave the private rented sector as landlords for a variety of reasons. A lot of them caused in the last 14 years and the uncertainties that has brought them. The affordable housing, no matter how much we're putting more into the market, people aren't moving as often as they used to do. So there's less affordable housing coming in for choice, but we're also dedicating some of that explicitly to take homelessness demand, which means there's less available for people who need to move for other reasons, and that actually puts pressures on other parts of the system. Ultimately, we need to build more homes. The lead-in times to building homes isn't quick. Viability issues are getting worse and worse, and the resources to make all of that add up are really difficult. On the other side, we are doing a lot in the council and with our partners. So within this report, we talk about the work we're doing on prevention, the work that Community Connections are doing to keep people in homes, to maintain tenancies and temporary accommodation, to stop people being in pay-by-night accommodation, which is the worst form of accommodation for them to be in. But the work that is done there is substantial alongside our partners. So early interventions and preventions And I would once again say to someone, if you think that you're about to become homeless because you've just received a letter from your landlord, don't leave it till the last minute. Yes, we will tell you that you need to stay there till the bailiffs are instructed. But the earlier you tell us, the faster we can be working with you on helping to find solutions to stop you becoming homeless, or if you do need to move, not moving into something that's temporary, but helping you into a longer term solution. We're also working in terms of prevention at breaking cycles. So if someone's in the system, how we stop them staying in the system and just moving round and round and round, so that when people get that offer of permanent accommodation, they can maintain tenancies. And the reason we can do that isn't only our own team in community connections and in youth services, but also our voluntary community sector partners who are out there day in, day out doing this work. And not just the big funded services, but people like the Soup Run who actually let us know that night if they find someone sleeping rough for the first time, so that our multi-agency teams can be visiting them the next day, and we can set in early, and to give us advance notice of trends that they're spotting or areas where we need to work. This is real partnership work in action in prevention. We are doing new provision in the area of temporary accommodation. That's not pay by night in bed and breakfast or Airbnbs, but in accommodation that people can live in that supports them through until they find permanent. That's not only cheaper for us, it's better for them. And that's a bit of a win-win to be in that situation until we actually get the win of a permanent home. And in the report, we talk about LAF, the Local Authority Housing Fund, which we have accessed with our partners to buy houses for temporary accommodation, as well as for resettlement, especially for those in the Afghan scheme, to support those families who supported our serving personnel in Afghanistan, people who worked with our soldiers, our sailors, our Marines from Plymouth in Afghanistan. We're now supporting them through that. The Supported Housing Accommodation Programme, where Plymouth didn't only do well and win the biggest total amount of any local authority, we also got the biggest scheme in the country, and working with partners on that, which is actually, as it says, it's supported housing. It's actually helping people not just have a roof over their heads while they're in temporary accommodation, but like LAF, giving people the support they need to move from it. And the work that we've been hearing from partners, especially from that really big scheme with YMCA Exeter and Young Devon, and the reason it's YMCA Exeter is YMCA Plymouth don't do housing, whereas YMCA Exeter do, so they work in partnership on these sorts of things. That is going to be really, really important, and the standard of accommodation and support that will be given in Plymouth House is going to be outstanding, and that's all in there. And also our own direct intervention. So, you know, Royal, which we bought and are now beginning to take through the processing on, where we're getting involved, has actually meant that the bits we've already done, as well as the bits we've got in plan, mean for families in bed and breakfast, we no longer have people staying way over limits, and we're reducing family numbers, and our target is to do that even more, so that actually for children, bed and breakfast and Airbnbs aren't the norm, something longer term in terms of temp and better equipped and supported are in place. But we can also now begin to look with our partners on what we do for single people, because the bed and breakfast numbers are still high and we need to tackle that. And so we still need more temporary accommodation. Our alliance partnership is really important, but in terms of this, I'd like to specifically say a big thank you to Bournemouth Churches Housing Association and to PATH for stepping in so often with us on accommodation-based solutions, because they're the two who are working most at getting most extra units on and most new units on. So this is a big picture. It's still a pressure. What we've done is, I think we've managed to stop that growth in spend. We've managed to come up with some better solutions. We're now in the implementation stage. As I said, though, housing takes time to fix. And a lot of this is about getting new affordable housing built. And and to get more housing built in the city as a whole to take some of the pressure off the overheated housing market in the city. I am aware that there's a lot of work here on homelessness. This is one strand of Plan for Homes. We will be coming back to both to scrutiny and to Cabinet over the course of the summer with a Plan for Homes Year 1 review. But given the pressure that homelessness causes on the council, we wanted to give a bigger bite of the cherry on this at this occasion. I'll hand over to Matt, who will probably want to give some feedback from officer perspective. But I would just like to say thank you to everyone who's involved in doing this. Our teams, I visited the teams in Derry's Cross and in Taylor Maxwell House, caseloads of up to 70 families or households where they are really busting a gut and doing an amazing job. And to our partners out there in the Alliance and in the grassroots voluntary community sector who work so closely with us on tackling what is a really big societal issue that is beyond any of our control. So a big thank you to all of them. But over to Matt, and then happy to take questions.
Thanks, Councillor Penberthy. There is just one thing I want to add at the moment, and that's in the report you will see a small portion of client feedback. So Councillor Penberthy's just mentioned how hard the team are working and given his thanks. I just want all of Cabinet to know how hard the Housing Solutions team are working at the moment to kind of deal with the issues that have been raised. I think it's clear there's lots of context. All of the building bridges work and stuff gives us the context around why it's so difficult for households out there. But working in homelessness can be a quite unforgiving job in that you very rarely hear about the good stuff. You'll always hear about the complaints and the times it goes bad. So I just wanted you to see 4.1, which gives you a little bit of feedback, positive feedback on the teams, and just have it noted that the teams are working really, really hard and doing some really good work at the moment. And I hope the paper kind of sets some of that out. And Councillor Penberthy's been through some of that, but we're happy to take any other questions there might be.
Lovely, Matt. Thanks very much. Anybody? Yes, Mark.
Can I ask that on page 25, you set out some of the funding streams that you've received in respect of dealing with some of the very complex issues that Councillor Penberthy's talked about. But can we include the true cost of this service to the council, not just from a revenue perspective, please, but also from a capital perspective, so we've got an understanding of that, please. And I think it's important that people see fully the cost of homelessness, and people get very confused with homelessness. They assume it is people sleeping on the street. Sometimes it is, but that's, as this paper refers to, as rough sleepers. And people need to see that there are a lot of people who aren't rough sleeping. They simply need support from us to get a home, and that's what the team are obviously doing. But if we can just have a look at the cost, please, to make sure the true cost of ownership from the council's perspective is reflected along with the capital expenditure, please. Thank you.
I'm sure we can do that. Any other questions? I mean, I think, you know, those quotes on page 26, the client feedback is worth saying. Getting into temp and housing options supported me to do this to save my life, and I couldn't have imagined I would ever have been able to leave the awful situation I was in. Thank you so much for your continued support and professionalism through this very traumatic time in my life. You were so polite, so caring, and a shining light in a very dark period in my life. Thank you for your kindness and compassion when discussing the daunting situation and homelessness process. You immediately put me at ease and treated me like a human being rather than a box to be ticked or someone to be judged. You are an absolute credit to the job. That's fantastic. And, you know, there's a number of services we provide like that, Matt, in the council where people are working hard every day and they very rarely get thanked. But if you would send the best wishes from the Cabinet to your team, you know, councillors are often the source of angst to your team as well. as people come into our advice surgeries and we get emails and people are very desperate and they present to us. And sometimes we don't treat your staff in perhaps the way they should be. And so it's an opportunity for us to say sorry for that. People are desperate, and we are desperate to help them, but your staff are too. And we should always remember that. There's lots to be thinking about, though, in the next few weeks as we work with our new partners with Homes England. The opportunities we've got to start working with PCH in quite a dynamic way in terms of getting more units built in Plymouth. And we'll have more to say about that in a little while. But it'll take a while for those interventions to feed through to you and the work you do. So in the meantime, if all we can offer you is our grateful thanks and support, but we will be trying to transform the housing offer in this city over the next few years, as we seek to capitalise upon the investment in the dockyard and the opportunities that will provide in terms of attracting people and developers, housing developers to the city. So let's hope that that's the case. But once again, thank you, Matt, and thank your team. Thanks, Chris, too. Okay, shall we agree that? Well, I think we basically note this report. Thank you very much. Thank you. Now then, item 10, leaders' announcements and cabinet member updates. And I'm going to take item 12 next, and then item 11, and then item 10, if that's all right. All will be revealed in a minute. So, in terms of the LGA, some of you may be aware that we had some elections in recent days, not in Plymouth, but in about 20 odd places around the country. I think there were elections for county councils. Some of them were unitary. But it wasn't a massive set of elections in the next year, in 26. London will be up and there'll be various other councils. I mean, there are 370 councils around the country, okay? It's, and not all of them were up on that Thursday. In fact, very few of them were. But I just need to report that as a result of those elections, there have been some changes in percentages of political parties on the LGA. But just to say that Labour remains the largest party in local government. You might not have thought of that from the television coverage and newspaper coverage, but actually there are still in the UK 6,122 councillors, Labour councillors in the country. There are 4,400 Conservative councillors. There are 3,197 Lib Dem councillors. There are 895 Green councillors. There are 812 Reform councillors. There are 418 SNP councillors, 201 Plaid Cymru councillors, and people who aren't any of those things, there are 2,546 of them. And 49 vacancies. So there's 18,645 councillors. So that means that in terms of allocation of seats on the LGA, there's a little bit of tweaking, but substantially no real change as a result. In terms of council leadership, and I think who's in control of councils, because you heard again, I think that there are 7 or 8 reform councils, and you'd be forgiven for thinking that means they've taken over local government. Well, let me tell you, of those 370 councils, 153 are led either by Labour in full control or in no overall control with Labour as the largest party. There are 65 councils led by the Conservatives, with 36 of those being full control and 29 of those in no overall control, with Conservatives in the leadership seat. There are 40 Lib Dem authorities in full control, 32 where they are in a knock. It's a bit like the Cornwall situation. Anyway, 72 councils are led by the Lib Dems. The Greens have full control of one council, and 11 where they are in coalition in an overall control environment, and that's 12 for them. And then Reform are in full control, I think it says here, of 9, but not in coalition with anybody else. You can draw your own conclusions from that. Full control SNP 1 and in coalition 12, and Plaid Cymru 3 in full control, 1 in coalition. And the others, who are neither of those above, they're in control of 11 authorities, 23 in coalition, giving them a total of 34. So that gives you a much more accurate picture, I think, of how things actually are in reality on the ground, and who is running councils at the moment. That's pretty much all I want to say, really, except that there's been a piece of work done by the LGA in the context of local government reorganisation and the application of cyber, digital and technology considerations. So if you want to have a look at that report is fully available, and that was based on research done with just 17 of our council members across the country, but you know, it's still quite important. And on the 23rd of April, Local Government Association, on behalf of us all, with Tech UK, signed a memorandum of understanding, making a significant step forward in advancing digital transformation across the local government sector and fostering stronger collaboration between local government and the tech industry. So some interesting new steps there, I would suggest to you. So, yeah, and for those of you well, not whether you're interested, you should be interested in this. The LGA has launched a cyber incident grab bag for local authorities, which provides a practical resource for responding to major cyber incidents. Now, this is quite important because, you know, what a lot of people don't realise is that the council, like all councils, is under constant threat from cyber attacks. And it's really important. We spend a lot of time training staff about what to look out for. We've even tried that with members. To a lesser or greater extent, we've succeeded. You know, council staff here are required to take part in cyber security awareness training every month. So that is important. And members. Yeah, our members. I mean, it's really important. Delt, the company that provides our IT services in this council, has increased their cyber investment tenfold in recent years, from 50k per year to 500k. Again, reflecting the constant threat and the vigilance that we have to display. And the council has invested in greater technical controls in line with National Cyber Security Centre recommendations. So I think, again, perhaps at some point we could have a bit more of an insight into how that's going and the threats that we face. I think people out in the public might be shocked about it just exactly. When we talk about Russian interference and stuff, people think, oh, that's just a cliche, right? But actually, it'd be really useful to get a sense of how people are bombarding us. And we have to keep our data safe. And we hold a lot of records on a lot of people about a lot of things. And so it's really important that our systems are secure and safe. A lot of people outside the council want it for nefarious purposes, and we have to keep our data safe. So it's really important work. Okay, I'm going to ask now the Cabinet members if they've got any updates. Can I start with you?
Thank you, Leader. I've got a few. I want to start with congratulating the team at Downham House, which is Plymouth City Council's registered children's home. It was inspected by Ofsted in March, and the home was judged to be good in all areas of inspection, including the overall experiences and progress of children and how well children are helped and protected, and the effectiveness of the leaders and managers. For those who don't know, the home specialises in looking after children who have severe learning disabilities and very complex behaviour profiles, who need to have a short break so they can enjoy themselves and have a change of environment, and so that their families can have a break from their caring responsibilities. And it's registered for children aged 8 to 18, and there are currently 13 children using the service. I paid a visit to Downham House a couple of weeks ago, and I mean, I was just blown away by the way Victoria, Scott and the whole team care so passionately, the attention to detail there to make it as welcoming a place for those children who really enjoy going there is something else, and they really are to be commended. So I want to give huge congratulations, I hope, on behalf of the Cabinet to the whole team. Want to talk a little bit about the box, about the new exhibition, Forbidden Territories, which is opening later this month. 100 Years of Surreal Landscapes, a stunning exhibition of work by some of the leading surrealists, Man Ray, all the big names, Salvador Dali, and it considers their legacy. And we'll also be showing the winning entries to the Children and Young People's Competition, Surreal Estates, a collaboration with Arts University Plymouth. So that's very exciting. And also, just wanted to give a quick update on the Youth Investment Fund work of 3 of our youth centres. The main building works at Frederick Street are due to be completed by the end of May. Staff aren't going to move until the end of August when the hub is completed because of access and safety requirements. We'll see Efford and Honicknall complete building works towards the end of June, and then we'll start to slowly reintroduce services and run test events at both sites. And we expect to formally unveil all the buildings in September. One of the new services we'll be offering at Efford and Honicknall will be a brand new Williams F1 eSports hub, the first of its kind in the Southwest, as well as offering high-spec gaming PCs where young people can develop their basic computing, programming and gaming skills. There will be 5 racing simulators where they can take on other young people across the world in the Williams eSports racing leagues. We hope to introduce recognised digital courses and offer school trips and work experience through the Williams partnership. And we're currently building a wider approach through relationships with the University of Plymouth and the Fulston Park, and look forward to updating you as this develops. But as I understand it, this is a really big deal and a really fantastic facility for our young people in the city. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much indeed. Fantastic. I'm going to go down the corridor there. Chris, have you got anything? Mark, you got anything? Sally, you got something?
Yes, please, Leader. I'd just like to give you an update from the bereavement services. The park, believe it or not, has only been opened for 9 months, but we have had our second open day. So we held our first one in October, and then on the 26th of April, a couple of weeks ago, we held our other open day, where we saw approximately about 400 visitors coming through from Plymouth and surrounding area. Quote here from the team: "We're overwhelmed with the positive comments about the building surroundings and how friendly, approachable the staff were." So that was some of the comments that were over on social media. And I'm sure a lot of our visitors actually liked our new ducks that have arrived, have took home in our new pond going around. It just naturally just took upon themselves. So now we're having to get duck food as well. Okay. All right, but I'll come to you for finance on that one. But moving on, I just want to update you regarding the libraries. So I don't know if Cabinet remembers, we have a ballerina from Birmingham Royal Ballet. When they come to Plymouth, I spoke to the team and said, why can't you go out to local areas? Not everyone can afford to come and watch the ballet. And some of these are little children as well. So we started off in the St Budo Library, where we had the capacity to hold people. It was served very well. We went out to Southway, and we've just been out to Plymouth Library, where we've seen over 200 people attending, which was good. Staff at Plympton Library have completed a successful partnership with Libraries Connected and Natural England by delivering bird watching walks at Haywood Park. And this obviously helped other people to be able to combat loneliness and obviously get to know nature within their community. Finally, Leader, the community garden at St Budo Library has finally opened on the 1st of May. The garden has been put together by library staff, and it does say here, kind funding from local councillors and grant funding. It's absolutely superb. It really is. It's a resource for local communities. It's very child friendly. They're going to be hosting a lot of activities, children activities during the summer. And to be honest, it's really just nice just to sit and read a book and have, you know, maybe a coffee or something. And they've been growing. They've got like rhubarb growing and lots of different things that are happening. So it's nice to have a library that you can actually enjoy outside as well. So that's my updates. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much indeed for that, Sally. Mark, do you have anything? Tom, good to see you. And what have you got for us?
Thank you. Well, it's that time of year, Leader, where I always do the end of season roundup on tree planting. So as a reminder, this time last year I mentioned we'd planted over 4,000 trees, which to me sounded like a pretty large number at the time. Well, this year I can confirm that the number over the last year is in excess of 35,000 trees across Plymouth. The Community Forest team have been supporting a massive scheme that you'll be aware of on MOD land near Ernesettle. 35,000 in 1 year. So the significant portion of that is the MOD scheme near Ernesettle, which involved us channeling over about £300,000 of grant funding to get that off the ground, or rather in the ground, and delivering an eventual new woodland that can already be seen from the Tamar Bridge. But the team and I are also particularly excited by the smaller, more community-focused schemes that have been delivered on public land, be it parks and open spaces, road verges, residential streets, or in fact in school grounds. These urban schemes connect up crucial wildlife corridors and have a real positive impact on the residents who live near them. Extra specially, this year, a huge 658 standard and fruit trees have been established, which again is nearly double the number from this time last year. Over the course of the season, teams have engaged with hundreds of people of all ages through various community events and groups, including Plymouth Tree People, Headway, Society, and the Hoe Gardening Group, as well as through partnerships with landowners like Plymouth Community Homes and the Learning Academy Trust. I'd like to thank all of them collectively for making this unprecedented planting year a reality. The successful season, plus ongoing work behind the scenes, has also recently led to Plymouth being awarded the coveted status as an official Tree City of the World. The Tree Cities of the World programme is an international effort to recognise cities and towns across the globe that are committed to ensuring that their urban forests and trees are properly maintained, sustainably managed, and also celebrated. Plymouth was awarded this status after a joint bid between the Plymouth and South Devon Community Forest, the Council, and the local charity Plymouth Tree People. It's in recognition of the innovative approach to bringing what's known as our community forest to life. Since taking control in 2023, our Labour administration has championed enhancing our natural environment. So this international recognition as a leading tree city, achieved in thanks to positive collaboration with local community groups, I hope shows just how far we've come as a local authority. And once again, I'd like to thank all of the officers, the community volunteers who've helped us get to that point. But that's not it. I also wanted to update Cabinet on progress surrounding the heat network. Since the original Cabinet endorsement of the approach in September last year, we've since had unanimous support on a cross-party basis at scrutiny in October. and the subsequent decision with business case was approved in December, just before Christmas. Last month, Plymouth hosted a Bidders' Day event, which I was pleased to open, all about providing more information about procurement and the project details itself. I'm really pleased that over 30 companies attended, mainly heat network developers and investors nationally and internationally. To maximise the local economic benefits, 25 local suppliers also attended for networking purposes after a briefing to Building Plymouth the week before. The day after that successful event, a Green Heatwork Network Fund application was submitted for just over £9 million. And that grant will go towards the £65 million first phase of the scheme if successful. The rest will be externally financed. In the next month, we'll be formally launching procurement through the tender progress to appoint a development partner and to fully commercialise the proposals we've been working on for quite some time. It's hard to overstate the national significance of this milestone. Plymouth is currently the first of the government's advanced zoning programme cities to move to procurement out of just 6, which was shortlisted last year. Thank you, Leader.
Well, hats off to you and the team, Tom, because I know how committed you are personally to this project, but you've got staff who are really pulling out all the stops to make this happen as well. I think the thing people need to understand is it's going to be a tremendous fillip for business in the city, as well as the opportunity for new housing projects to benefit from this and to reduce fuel bills to very small. It's an incredibly innovative project, certainly down our way, although the technology has been seen in other parts of the country. You know, I think this is so exciting, and the potential it's got for jobs as well, for the city as well, is great. So thank you for what you're doing. And by the way, on the trees, do you think we're going to get pages and pages of congratulations for getting 35,000 trees planted? How do we plan to let people know this? Because that's an enormous amount of biomass we've just sorted out, isn't it?
We've got a press release ready to go, which I hope local media will certainly pick up. The scale of tree planting Plymouth's been involved with is nationally significant. We're one of a handful of community forests, and it makes a bit of a mockery of the claim from the Yes to Mayor campaign, who seemed to suggest that we needed or actually elected mayor to accelerate tree planting in the city, and this just shows what's possible with the Leader and Cabinet model that we already have.
Thank you, Tom. Sally, is there anything from you?
Yes, there is. I've got 2 key announcements here, and I think it starts on the theme of this all being very, very, very positive. I always say, be more radiator and less drain, and I think this is very much a radiating cabinet. So my first one is related to school-based nursery capital grant. So, and it's a good example of how we're working really closely and effectively with government. So in October 2024, the phase 1 of the school-based nursery capital grant was published by the Department for Education. And eligible state-funded primary phase schools were able to bid for up to 150,000 of capital funding. The funding could only be used for capital expenditure to repurpose spare space within school building to create or expand nursery provision. This was the first stage in what's a long-term commitment to expand school-based nurseries across England. So in November 2024, the Entitlement and Wraparound Care Service officers of the council held a school-based nursery briefing with the head teachers of primary schools interested in the DfE establishing school-based nursery provision, and they were invited to attend. The information shared was informed by the DfE guidance and included the application process, the timeframes, the models of delivery, eligibility criteria, assessment criteria, local authorities' responsibilities, and it was attended by 19 primary schools, including head teachers, trust representatives. The schools were then offered the opportunity of the Entitlement and Wraparound Care Officer to visit the school and discuss their individual projects for school-based nursery, and 11 visits were undertaken. The schools had until the 19th of December to apply within Plymouth, and 3 schools applied. They were Lara Green Primary, Borringdon Primary, Plimpton St Mary's C of E Infant School. So a panel was convened which consisted of an education improvement partner, the early years child sufficiency coordinator and the entitlement and wraparound childcare officer to ensure that local authorities' responsibilities were being met. And the panel received 3 applications from the above named schools. A detailed description of each school's proposal was provided along with in-depth sufficiency information. This included ward level of sufficiency, data alongside information of current childcare providers and childminders. So I'm going to fast forward now to the 2nd of April. So on the 2nd of April, the DfE published the list of successful schools on the 2nd of April, and all 3 schools have been granted the capital grant to open a new provision from September 2025. The early years team will continue to support the schools through this process over the next term. But we also have on top of that, outside of the capital grant, the early years team have also been supporting the following schools to also open school-based nursery provision. One of them is Stuart Row Primary, where the head teacher has submitted a business plan to the Reach South Academy Trust, and also Glen Park Primary, where the West Country Trust are currently in consultation to lower the school age range from 4 to 2. And the entitlement and wraparound childcare officer is also in contact with what are now several primary schools and trusts who would like to apply for the school-based capital grant in what will be phase 2 or phase 3 of the programme. And guidance on this relating to the latter phases will be actually released shortly. But we also have, as you are probably aware, again, of where we're working very much hand in glove with the government, is the National Schools Breakfast Club's Early Adopters. So the Breakfast Club's Early Adopters scheme, as I've gone on and said on many occasions, is designed to break down barriers to opportunity, as well as tackle the impact of child poverty. Schools that have become early adopters have been given early access to government funding to deliver free and universal breakfast clubs from the first day of summer term 2025. Free universal breakfast clubs give children a supportive start to the school day, ensuring they're ready and able to learn and make the most of the opportunities school offer. Breakfast clubs are also supported families financially by reducing the cost of living. So what happened was across Plymouth, we had 5 primary schools that were chosen by the DfE and to be early adopters in the National School Breakfast Programme. And what's really key with these 5 schools is they're part of the test and learn phase of how best to implement the new breakfast clubs ahead of the national rollout. And we'll be contributing quite considerably to this in terms of what our learning will be. So I can report, you'll be delighted to hear this, leader, is that Pennycross Primary School, they opened their free breakfast club to all children from the start of the summer term. The school has seen a significant increase in children attending, and they're now serving between 200 and 250 children's breakfasts a day. Goodness me. The head teacher is very positive about the impact of the programme for children and families. Pilgrim Primary School have also opened their free breakfast club, and I was delighted to be able to go along and attend, and seeing its gain, the number of children increasing who are actually attending. And the head teacher, and I can vouch for this, incredibly positive about the impact this will have on children and families as they move forward the programme. I also say I was incredibly impressed by the way they actually all tidied up so well and moved into their lessons. I was very impressed by that. St Peter's RC Primary School, where I also was on Friday, they have a private provider on site called Whitley Playcare, and they're providing universal free breakfast clubs, and they've started just this week, this last week, and this started, as I said, on the 6th of May, and the school surveyed the parents to assess the demand for the club, and they received considerable positive response. Marine Academy, I'll mention Marine Academy because if you've seen Plymouth Live today, you will see that there's a big piece about Marine Academy actually in the paper. They were invited to join the programme a bit later, and they've been initiative taking, and they've opened a breakfast bistro on the 25th of April. And parents and the wider community can also attend the bistro alongside their child and have breakfast together. This has been an immense success to date and received a positive response from families. And Stuart Road Primary Academy also invited to start the programme, and they've just started or just starting their free breakfast clubs from the 6th of May. I think it's this week actually. And it's what's absolutely great about it is you can see going into schools, and I'm going to go into the 3 I haven't visited, but I have talked to some of the heads, is the innovation and taking something up and running with it and thinking, how can I make this work? I mean, I'm smiling because you can see people working really positively to actually make something work, you know, and work for their children and their families. So every school as well is part of the Department for Education network meetings, which they have monthly, as well as Hannah Bruty, one of our officers, who's been doing a fantastic job supporting schools, who's the entitlement and wraparound officer. And these meetings are providing peer-to-peer support and opportunities for the schools to give feedback on the process and also on the constraints of the programme and how you make it better for when other schools actually it's all rolled out in next academic year. And just one final thing, if I can possibly say, is that today is the first day of the Key Stage 2 SATs. And I just want us to actually say best of luck to all young people, whether you're doing your SATs, whether you happen to be doing A-levels in this summer term, or whether you happen to be sitting your phonics assessment tests. So good luck, best of luck to all of our young people. And thank you very much, Leader. Lovely to be able to say so many positive things.
Oh, that's great. There's a lot going on here, isn't there? And I think it's most important that we get the bandwidth to be able to take some of these messages out. I mean, it'd be great if you went to, you know, hospital radio or something and had a chat with one of their presenters about what's going on in our schools. For example, we've all got, you know, a lot of us have got grandkids or kids, and it would be great for people who are in hospital to hear exactly what's going on around and what might be happening, you know.
The great thing is the positivity of staff working in schools, the positivity of our staff as well, who are doing everything possible to support. And you just see that, and it's absolutely wonderful, and it just makes you smile.
It does. Sudan, do you have anything?
I do. Well, I'm not going to start off with what I planned to say. I'm going to start off with what I wasn't planning on saying. Because it dawned on me when we were talking earlier, when we talked about building bridges, and we've talked about Plymouth Thrive, and we've talked about ageing well. We've talked about children's social care and adult social care. And I don't think it's really difficult to articulate how, as a council, we managed to join all of these up. So I'm now going to talk about something not related to any of those, but something which is going to impact on all of the things that we've said today. So a couple of weeks ago, we had a small sports conference in Plymouth. We often talk about the big things. We talk about Fulston Park, we talk about Argyle and rugby and swimming and all the big things. But actually, there are so many small sports clubs across the city who deliver things for people of all ages, week in and week out, and they get very little recognition. Boxing clubs, the Mayflower Specials, I can list so many. And we had 80 of these delegates in a room, and we talked about how we can support the clubs to deliver, because every week they have people doing walking football clubs, or just meeting for a walk in the park, or getting young people to go to a boxing club, or getting people who are socially isolated out and about and sitting in their chairs and doing chair yoga. All these relies on volunteers who give their time freely. And one of the delegates we had there was from a big organisation called Sport England. And I'll be talking about a bid that we're putting into Sport England in a couple of months' time, but we're actually working on it now. And he said that when we're looking at what we're trying to do as part of this bid, we could only deliver the type of bid that we're going to put in Plymouth, because we are a big village and we work together. and we work in partnership, and we work for the greater good. So when we put in our bids, we're not always thinking what is best for me, we're thinking what is best for the city. And the reason I'm saying that is because it's aimed at children, young people and families. So when you look at all the things that we were talking about building bridges, which is about supporting women and trying to make sure that they are more able to support their families, and we're talking about the breakfast clubs, and we've got Marine Academy with their bistro, when we're encouraging parents as well as the children to come in and do things. It shows that we have this real alignment across all we deliver in the city for the greater good. So that's what I wasn't going to say. But it does lead on very nicely to the fact that Fit and Fed, we've got over £1 million to deliver. It comes online on the 20th of June. And if you remember last year, we offered over 22,000 places to young people across the city who were in different circumstances, who are on free school meals, or there might be vulnerable children, or looked after children, or send children, but we offer these amazing sporting facilities. And when you listen to the quotes from Matt's team about the homelessness and the amount of support that we give for that cohort of people, of course Fit and Fed gives the same support to lots of families who really appreciate what we mean to do. So, you know, the 83% of the money that we spend on adult social care, children's social care and homeless, the other 17%, we really work it hard to make sure that we support people across the city. And then, of course, we come to the things that I love talking about. Who's been in the sea so far? Anybody else? Oh, yeah, 2 of us. Oh, that's good. Yeah. That's good. Yeah. Just checking.
It was warmer in the Mediterranean where I went last month. Yes.
Ah, was it really? Well, I think it's still pretty refreshing anyway. But so Mark, you might want to join me then. So on Saturday the 24th of May, just to let you know, Tinside opens. It's going to be quite interesting and challenging summer this year because they open on the 24th of May, but they only get control of the building after all of the major investments that's been going on the day before. So it might be a bit of a slow opening, but I can guarantee that you'll be able to get a hot cup of coffee down the bottom because the water might still be a little chilly. But it is opening on the 24th of May. And, you know, it is one of those iconic places. And by the end of the summer, we will be able to have a beautiful terrace open at the top and a lovely coffee pod. And it really is going to be a destination piece. And then, Mark, I might like to invite you, might want to join me on this as well then. Saturday the 21st of June, summer solstice swim. You have to go for a bit early. You have to be down there for about 4:30 to watch the sunrise and you get into the water. You can have a hot toddy if you want one, yeah? But, I mean, we are doing the summer solstice swim. We did it last year and they've already sold a third of the tickets, which is absolutely brilliant. But there's going to be lots of other things to look forward to, like a silent disco on the 19th of July. So we can all go and bop to the sea with our own little bit of music. So I think this year, Tinside is going to be transformative in what we can do there. And it's part of the National Marine Park investment. It's the first bit of the investment that people are really going to be able to see. So I really hope that it's going to be popular. Now, once I've dipped my feet in Tinside, I can always then go and get Councillor Coker at the end because I know he loves a little swim. Because Mount Wise opens on the same day. And let's take it on board, and we say every year, but Mount Wise is free for the people of Plymouth, and we're keeping it free this year as well. And that's really, really important because we live in a coastal city. We try and do everything we can to encourage children and young people to be able to swim. So to be able to offer them this free facility for the whole of the summer and all the way through the holidays is absolutely fantastic. And we do need to celebrate it because there are very few councils that support having a Lido like Mount Wise with that amazing view that is free for the people that want to use it. There will be some charge sessions, so there will be a couple of early morning swims and a couple of late evening swims where people can pay because they just want to go up and do some proper swimming, do some lane swimming, which you can't do when you've got little kids jumping in and around the pool, which is what it's there for. So we will get a little bit of money in, but it is free every single day for the week. And they're doing a very useful little children's engagement piece, talking to children about explaining how people can book it and how people can use it, because we do have to restrict the numbers. Not everybody can pile in at the same time, but that is really, really good. And Mr. Coke, you going to commit to getting in the water?
I will be there.
Right, thank you very much. You heard it here. Yeah, you heard it here. So it's great to be able to say that, because of course swimming and with the National Marine Park, it's a great asset, and it's taken us a long time to be able to, you think about when we started talking about the National Marine Park a long time ago, to get the money in to build and be able to support our foreshore is amazing. So that's my announcement.
Thank you very much indeed. Now, Mary Aspinall has got something to tell us, and we've been joined by Claire, and we've got a bit of a little film show, haven't we?
Leader, thank you. I wanted very much for this little video to come. In fact, I wanted the children originally to come and perform for the Lord Mayor, but we couldn't organise that. So Claire and her team kindly went back out to Ernie Settle Community School, where we had been back in February when we launched the whole had been launched. We in Plymouth have been doing it for a little while, but it's now being done absolutely spectacularly. And what I would like to do is to invite Claire just to say a few words about the scheme, but I'm expecting some activity from all the people. Need us, no doubt, but I'm expecting some activity, all right? So I'll leave it to Claire just to explain a bit more.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me here today, Mary, and it's lovely to meet you all. So I'm Claire Foster. I work for At Home Dental. We run the Big Brush Club, so we've been contracted by the NHS to deliver supervised toothbrushing in schools across the whole of the Southwest. Lucky enough, most of our team are based down in Devon. Our main offices are in Totnes, and I live very close to Plymouth here, so we've got a real focus on Plymouth, and it's been fantastic taking Plymouth as a pilot run programme of the supervised toothbrushing from Peninsula Dental School, and all their hard work and implementing it into this bigger programme that the NHS has funded to deliver. So currently in Plymouth, I've had to write it on my hand, sorry, because the number changes daily, but we've got 6,330 children brushing daily at school, which is fantastic. So that's over 100 schools across the Plymouth area. 73% uptake. So one of my big asks for you today is if I could share the decline schools with you and the non-responding schools. If you've got any sway on those schools to try and get them on board with the programme, I'd be very grateful. It is an evidence-based programme. It's aimed at children between the age of 3 and 5. So even though sometimes they feel it might disrupt the curriculum at school, for that age group, it's part of their curriculum and it's a core life skill. We also find it seems really simple. People say, oh, it's just brushing your teeth. The parents should be doing that. But we heard earlier with Sally, is it? Sorry. You're mentioning about the breakfast clubs. So I think that's really important, and it does tie into this, is that these days family life has really changed. It's dramatically changed. And children are spending longer at school. They're with the teachers longer than they're with the parents, actually, during the school days. So just having that support of the breakfast clubs and the teeth brushing and the techniques. And we do tie it in again with the parents. So it's really important to, we offer parent webinar sessions in the evenings, so we can try and train the parents and teach them. But even the teachers, they say they come along to our training sessions to become oral health champions, and they say, I didn't know all this. I didn't know really how to brush my teeth correctly and know about oral health. So it's really promoting it in the community. Anybody who'd be interested to come along to one of our schools and watch a brushing session in action, very happy to have you come along. It is fantastic. It does take about 10 minutes out of their day once they get it rolling. And again, these kids are so organised. They pick the toothbrushes up and they put them back in the trays, and it's just fantastic. They get it all done. So this is, at the moment, we're going to show this video with the children singing. So we had our own very own dentist from At Home Dental wrote this song and had it recorded by Florence and the Machine's producer, actually, so which is quite interesting. And all the children across the Southwest are learning this song for the NHS competition. And it's going to be judged at the end of the month just to promote oral health. And really important that I'm here today as well, because today is National Smile Month, the start of it, the 12th. So, you know, any promotion you could do around this would be fantastic to get the word out there about the toothbrushing.
Leader, and one of the things I'd really like to ask is, can we make sure that we show this at council on the 2nd of June, this video, please? Because that will help with the National Smile Month as well.
Brush, 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 2 minutes every night before you go to bed to make your teeth shine. Brush, 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 protect every day, 2 minutes at a time to brush the feet away. Brush, 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 circular motion, up and down like a sail in the ocean. Brush, 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 brush your brushy teeth out. Catch your toes and finish with your tongue. Brush, 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 and my toothpaste paste. I'm going to brush my teeth with my toothbrush, brush, and my toothpaste paste. I'm going to brush my teeth. Brush, 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 2 minutes at a time. You're doing so fine. Brush, 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 2 minutes after meals. It's over for the day. How does it make you feel? Brush, brush, brush. Come on, don't be lazy. Put them in the air. They're all going crazy. Brush, brush, brush. Brush, brush, brush. Brush, brush, brush. Brush, brush. With my toothbrush, brush, and my toothpaste paste. I'm going to brush my teeth. With my toothbrush, brush, and my toothpaste paste. I'm going to brush my teeth. Oh yeah.
They were just so enthusiastic, Leader. They really, really were. You can see that it's not a coordinated sort of effort, but the spontaneity is just wonderful. And I'm sure some of them must have been aching afterwards because they were just throwing themselves into it so much. But, you know, the serious side of this, as Jemima and I pointed out, several years ago, the number of teeth that have to be extracted from small children, you know, this is why this is so important, and we need to get behind it. And very, very happy for Sally and I to write a joint letter to those schools that aren't taking part. Okay.
I mean, I've got to ask, I know you all want to, but what's the badger?
So we've got Bob the Badger, Roll the Rabbit, and Flossie the Fox, and it's just to gain a little bit of interest, momentum, capture the media's attention too around it, which is why we're doing this singing competition as well and things like that. Anything at all to sing about oral health, but yeah, it's a bit crazy. I'm very grateful I don't have to wear the badger costume, because especially in the heat of the summer.
I was going to say there's some of a bit of a challenge there,
Yes.
but you know, we're grateful to Bob.
You've met the badger, haven't you, Mary?
Okay. Anyway, good luck to you. I mean, this is so important, like you say, for prevention. I mean, you know, ever since Jemima tipped all of those, was it real teeth? No, it wasn't real teeth. Soybeans into a jar, in the council. I mean, that's quite a while ago now, isn't it? Because we were in the Guildhall when that happened, you know, with the COVID and that. But yeah, it's a big problem, and this is going to help enormously, isn't it? And help parents who are struggling with that bit, because you have got to persist. as a parent to make sure that that happens.
I just add one thing. Last week, one of the facilitators went out to a school in Plymouth, and one child wasn't participating in the brushing. They said she can't participate. She's just had a general anaesthetic. She had 16 teeth out. That's virtually a full clearance for a child that age. It's pretty much full clear. 16 teeth at that age, and then she still was bringing Coca-Cola in bottles to school. So yeah, we really need a lot of education around this. It's heartbreaking.
Thank you, Claire, for coming today, and thank you and the team that you're part of for doing what you're doing. It's so important for those children, and if you could let us have quietly a list of those non-participatory schools, I'm sure some of us would want to see if we can assist in that respect. Okay, thank you. And can we agree to have the video shown at the council? Is that all right? That's the 2nd of June, is it? Is that the one? Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. Yes, move, you read your emails, So, okay. Thank you very much. Any more from you, or is that okay? That's cool. Lovely. I've got leaders update now, I think. Just wanted a couple of things really. There's been a lot of misinformation going around at the moment in terms of this directly elected mayor campaign. Now, you know that the council is prevented from actually doing a lot of that, correcting that misinformation. So I'm not going to correct any misinformation today. I'm going to give you some information, if that's all right, because the Yes campaign keeps suggesting that there are over 24 mayors in the country, to imply that more people, more places are doing this. Now, you'll have heard that I talked about the 370 councils that are nationally that we have. Now, only of those, 13 councils have directly elected mayors. There are combined authority mayors like they have in Greater Manchester, but they are different, and they have different powers from a directly elected mayor, which have no more power than under the system that we currently have. But I just wanted, because there's been a lot of charge made that these mayors, there are a lot of them and they're in powerful places. So I'll run down the list of where the existing mayors are. I'm sure this would be of interest to members. Bedford Borough Council, the London Borough of Croydon, Doncaster Metropolitan Borough Council, Leicester City Council, London Borough of Hackney, London Borough of Lewisham, London Borough of Newham, London Borough of Tower Hamlets, Mansfield District Council, Middlesbrough Borough Council, North Tyneside Metropolitan Council, Salford City Council, and Watford Borough Council. That's the list. No Manchester, no Bristol, no Birmingham. In fact, none of the core cities of this country, either the 10 largest English cities, have a directly elected mayor. And with the sole exception of Salford, I'm right in saying that none of the key cities of which we are a member have a directly elected mayor either. So I think it's really important to put this on the record, because there's a lot of stuff going about at the moment about who has and who has not got. And so I thought it's important, given the fact that I have got the opportunity to share this information today. And by the way, all of these mayors are mayors of political parties. The Conservatives have 2 of them. Aspire, which is a political party all of its own that only operates in Tower Hamlets, have one. Liberal Democrats have one, and the rest of them are Labour. So the idea again that this is a big non-aligned thing is just nonsense. It's politicians that occupy these spaces. Just thought I'd need to say that today. Now, speaking of politicians, which we were, today is a very sad day. I don't know whether Councillor Mark Coker sees us as that, but I certainly do, because this is Mark's last meeting as a member of the Cabinet. And I think it'd be fair to say, Mark, that we need to place on record a real vote of thanks to you. You've been on this journey since 2012. In and out of power, you have held the transport portfolio in this city, and if I may say so, you are probably the most experienced transport councillor in the country. I don't think there's anybody that knows more about it than you, and I don't think there's anybody that's won more awards than you, and I certainly think there's no one that's won more money for this city than you. I just need people to understand just how successful Mark's been, because there's been a lot of rubbish talked about what we've been getting down the years, and I think it's really important that we put on record just what Mark's been up to on your behalf, because he certainly wouldn't tell you. So let's have a look at the strategic transport programme. I mean, that's £519 million worth of money, that is, Mark, right? Seeing the delivery of the relocation of Plymouth Coach Station, which of course facilitated the barcode, the Marjon Link Road Bus Priority Scheme, the Derryford Hospital Bus Interchange, the Derryford Road Improvement Scheme, the Northern Corridor Junction Improvement Scheme tackling bottlenecks, the Charles Cross Scheme tackling the most congested junction in the city, the Plymouth Road Scheme with all those lovely traffic lights that I remember you telling us so much about, the Morley Drive Bus Priority Scheme, and last but not least, the Forda Valley Link Road and Forda Valley Interchange Scheme, which opened up great opportunities in the Northern Corridor. And still to come, we have the Woolwell to the George Scheme, the major road network improvements between Marsh Mills and Camel's Head, and the Management Junction reconfiguration. I mean, 81% of all of that funding came from outside sources, through Mark working with the team, telling a story of delivery, ambition and drive. And it's been extraordinary. The Sustainable Transport Programme as well has seen 38.4 million of investment in walking and cycling measures. And I know you've had a lot of thanks for that. Bus infrastructure measures too have come through that route. Now that's included ongoing support of our promotion work, which we all are very appreciative of. And of course this month, as has already been mentioned, I think this month saw the arrival of the first of the fleet of over 50 electric buses coming into the city. Did I mention the Transforming Cities Fund? Officially ended in March this year, and that's seen a total investment of £149 million. That's included the installation of 50 mobility hubs across the city, the provision of walking and cycling routes through our local parks, junction improvements at Plymouth Railway Station, several walking and cycling improvements across the city, grants to local businesses to help encourage sustainable transport, installation of EV chargers in car parks, the creation of an EV car hub, public transport improvements at Mayflower Street and St. Budo Square, city centre public realm improvements, a brand new state-of-the-art traffic control centre to improve management of the highway network, and with Royal Parade and Armada Way still to come. He's secured £965,687 of consolidated active travel funding to deliver further walking and cycling projects. And in addition to all this, he has recently secured dedicated funding from his bus services improvement plan. The 25-26 bus grant will see £4.5 million of investment in supporting local bus services and infrastructure, which will see more frequent and reliable bus services. And did I mention the planning side? He's led the Plymouth and South West Devon Joint Local Plan, which adopted in March 2019, and that's helped to drive our strategic growth agenda, delivering thousands of homes and new employment and retail provision. Our latest monitoring shows that since 2014, the city has seen £717 million of investment infrastructure delivered into this city. I tell you what, Mark, that's not bad for somebody who's only been at it since 2012. But more than that, you've served your community in a way that a lot of councillors would be really envious of. You couldn't be more dedicated to your ward of Devonport, and you'll still, thank God, be with us to look after them. And also, well, I won't say where you're going next in the council, but what I would say is we owe you a tremendous debt, because you have probably the one portfolio, even more than Leader, to get thousands of thank yous every morning in your inbox. Seriously, the cacophony of misunderstanding and a lack of gratitude for the work that you're putting in. You have been so resilient in the face of some pretty miserable criticism of you. And that, I hope that on the record just goes to show how much Plymouth owes you. Certainly we on this side in the Labour Party will always be grateful for what you've done. And we haven't even mentioned your civicness as well, which you have been performing those duties while doing all of this. And again, you couldn't love this city more, and you couldn't love the council more, and you couldn't love the people of Plymouth and your constituency more. So Mark, thank you so much for what you've done. Would you like to respond?
Yeah, thank you for that. Just reflection, kind of sitting back and listening to you saying about that. Sometimes I think all of us that contribute to civic life don't actually realise what we've done. You know, you kind of move from one project to the next, forgetting what you've done. I think for me, the greatest pleasure has always been to be a Devonport ward councillor. That's where I live, that's where I operate. But also what I've learned to do as a councillor is actually to get the best for the city, you have to work with a number of people. And I always remember forming the sub-regional transport board, and being able to use our Plymouth plan to be able to articulate the needs of the city to get the funding that we've got. And that meant working with, well, I was the only Labour member on that, but actually to be able to bring all of the councillors from those different political parties to understand Plymouth's needs, I think was really good. And actually working with the Department for Transport in bringing up Plymouth's needs, the need that a city has, and I think that's paid dividends as well. You know, and I've really enjoyed it, but there comes a time in everyone's life where you need to move on, and I think I've reached that point. But it's been great, you know, and everyone in the room has helped. We may not always agreed at times, but that's life. But I'm proud of what we've done together. It's not just me, it's a cabinet and it's a team. And also want to pay tribute to Paul Barnard and the team there, and Philip Robinson and the team that I uphold and bring together for the work that they've done and for the support that they've given me. I know sometimes I'm not the easiest of people to work with, but I really do appreciate it. And if, Philip, you could pass that back to both Paul's team and yourself. So thank you, Chair. And I look forward to continuing to work for the greater goodness of the city. Thank you very much.
And on that bombshell, I think we'll close the meeting. Oh, what's that? Oh, we'll do that in a second. We'll do that in a second. So, thank you all very much for your attendance, and we'll see you next time if we don't see you before. Thank you.